How mad would you be if your custom home project got halted because of a turtle? Well, actually, a tortoise. Welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle Podcast, where we explore the intersection of Orlando real estate and your best life. I'm Phil Kruse, here to help you make the most out of your journey in the city beautiful. Orlando is an amazing city. The state of Florida is an amazing state. Here in Orlando, we are surrounded by the beauty of nature. We have more lakes than any other city in the country. We're surrounded by freshwater springs, rivers, forests, huge live oaks that have been here for hundreds of years, towering pine trees that are home to great horned owls, bald eagles. We are only an hour from Cocoa Beach. We have all the beach wildlife that we can go see. It is an amazing place to live and work in and call home. Orlando is a nature preserve in it of itself. It is completely amazing. And today, our topic is going to be the animals of Orlando. As I teased at the beginning, we're going to talk some about the practical nature of Orlando's wildlife, specifically how endangered species can affect single family home construction or commercial construction for that matter. Also, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite subject, alligators, right? And other dangerous water dwellers. This is for you folks looking to live on a lake, or maybe you already live on a lake. We're going to talk about manatees, and we're going to talk about nuisance animals, animals that are native to Florida, but are cause a nuisance other than construction, right? Nuisance for your average homeowner or someone who just simply resides in the city beautiful. But before I get into this super interesting and important topic, I want to point out, as you know, I am a real estate agent, and one of my main lead sources are listeners like you. So when it's your time to make a real estate decision, think of me, Phil Kruse. That's Kruse with a K. If you're having a glass of wine with a close friend or a beer or lunch, and they're going through a real estate situation, they need some help, or a family member for that matter, point them to me. That's Kruse with a K, Kruse. You can find me everywhere online. Phil Kruse, just throw it in Google, throw the words Orlando in there, throw the words real estate in there. You'll find me on Google. You'll find me on Instagram @_ Phil Kruse. And of course, hop onto my podcast. You can subscribe, give me a 5-star review. It really helps. And if you subscribe, you're going to get notifications every Monday when a new podcast drops. It's called the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle. So it's an eclectic podcast. I just recently interviewed Bruno Zacchini from Pizza Bruno. I interviewed Thomas Ward of Pig Floyd and Kelly Sen, the owner of Orlando Power Yoga. Of course, I have other real estate related topics like how to buy a lake house, episodes 1 and 2. I have an interview with a mortgage lender, and then lifestyle tips, how to sleep better, the value of a morning routine, and so forth. So you'll get a lot out of the podcast. And copy the link to the podcast while you're there and send it to a friend via text, or post it on your social media. Spread the word. I'm here to help. Real estate transactions don't have to be stressful or difficult. Work with the right pro. Work with me. I'll help you out. And you might even get some life coaching advice while you're at it. Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in Miami. I'm one of the few Florida natives that are out there. And there was a park in the Everglades called Shark Valley. Shark Valley used to be a petroleum mining facility back when we didn't care about the environment, right in the middle of the Everglades. Of course, that changed. It became a national park, and they took that facility and made that into an access point for the citizens there. We went there one day after what we called a cold snap down in Miami, when it drops down to like 50 or maybe 40 at night. And we went there. It was a beautiful day. We rode bikes with my parents, and we went down this huge pathway that was designed for trucks that would manage, oil tankers and manage heavy equipment. So these huge driveways, bigger than a regular street even. And on the road, and it went for miles, 7 miles, I think, there was alligators as far as you could see. Imagine it was so like out of a crazy, scary movie. We literally had to zigzag our bicycles around the alligators. Now, my parents weren't worried. Me and my brother were a little bit older. We weren't little toddlers or anything like that. And what the alligators were doing is they came out of the cold water from that night. They lumbered up on there and they were basking in the sun. And it was, early-ish in the morning, mid-morning, and they didn't have any energy yet. So they were just sunning themselves, gaining energy. We weren't afraid at all, but it was amazing. And let me tell you, these alligators were monstrous. We were out in their natural habitat. Clearly, I'm going to be talking about alligators in this segment. In the Everglades, we expect alligators. Where should you expect alligators in Orlando? Anytime I talk to one of my wife's friends or family members that are Brazilian, and I tell them I live in a lake, they say, "What about the alligators?" Brazilians are afraid of alligators, and a lot of people are afraid of alligators. Where are alligators in Orlando? The farther away you go from the city center of Orlando, the closer you're going to be to alligators. Why? Because that's where the undeveloped land is. That's where conservation area land is, like up in Sanford, north of Sanford and Seminole County, down in the Disney area, South Kissimmee. As you just spoke out away, you're getting into more raw land, less developed. That's where the alligators are. The closer you are to downtown Orlando, like the Conway chain, for example, you're not going to find alligators. It is extremely rare that you will ever hear somebody say that they've seen an alligator. I'm talking about people that have lived on the Conway chain for decades, okay, or multi-generation. My neighbor has 3 generations of experience in Orlando, and he doesn't know anyone in his family that's ever seen an alligator on the lake we live in or the Conway chain. Now, there are circumstances where they have popped up and there's been issues, but it's extremely rare. Bottom line is, if you're anywhere near a major city center like Orlando, you shouldn't be worried about gators. Now, if you live out in Seminole County, you should be a little bit more cognizant. Easy preventative tactics if you're out camping in one of these places in a spring or something where there could be gators and you have small children or dogs. Be by the shore, throw a big rock in there that scares the gators away right away. Remember, the gators are afraid of you. You are not their natural food. A small, very small child or a small dog, sure, that's possible. But you can scare them off if you're in wild nature. If you're not wild nature, you don't even need to worry about it, with an exception of if someone is feeding the alligators. If you live out in, again, Seminole County, up there in Longwood, maybe, and you have a lake that's right next to the conservation areas up there, or park, Seminole State Park, you're going to have alligators in the waterways. That's just the fact of the matter. You still don't need to be scared of them. You should have respect for them, of course, but never feed the alligators. This is the hugest issue. And any animal for that matter, if you feed them, they lose their natural fear of man. They see us as food as we approach. Any human approaches is, oh, this is a food source. I'm going to approach them, instead of going the opposite way. If you've ever gone near an alligator, they immediately run away once you get close. I don't care how big they are. They run into the water and they swim off. But if they view you as a food source because someone has been feeding them, it's the opposite. They'll approach, and if there's no food present, they may get frustrated and lash out and/or take the small child or dog that's nearby. So never feed the alligators, never feed wildlife. Alligators are a great story in Florida, depending on how scared you are of them. They were close to extinction at some point, and they were an endangered species. And the scientists in the state decided that they were going to make a concerted effort to save the American alligator. And boy, did they ever! Right? They're not endangered. There's millions of them. There's no issues with alligators anymore. But their cousin, the American crocodile. Did you even know we had crocodiles in Florida, in the Southeast? We all know about the Nile crocodile and the Australian saltwater crocodile. Those things are monsters. You see them on the Discovery Channel eating freaking wildebeests that are bigger than me. It's nuts. One of the twists about this is that the American crocodile is not as aggressive as those crocodiles. As a matter of fact, our alligators are considered more aggressive than crocodiles. How do you tell the difference between the two? An alligator has a very broad snout, almost like the end of a shovel, right? And its eyes and its snout are about the same proportionally width, whereas a crocodile has that skinnier snout where its teeth hang out more. So it's just know that we have American crocodiles, and also know that the environmentalists are trying to get them to come back as well, because they were also almost extinct. And we didn't push hard to get them to come back like we did the alligators. So crocodiles are next. When I was in the Florida Keys last year with my family, we saw a monster American crocodile literally swimming in the ocean about 200 feet off of our shore. It looked like a dragon. It was surreal. Just after a rainstorm, the water was glassy. They're here. Just something else to think about and observe. The skinny snout is the crocodile. For me, the animal that you need to be the most concerned with if you have kids, or in general, by the lakes in Orlando, by the rivers, the canals, any of those sorts of things, is the water moccasin, also known as the cottonmouth. It's known as a cottonmouth because when it opens its mouth to strike, it has a white mouth and it looks like it has a mouth full of cotton. Water moccasins are pit vipers, just like rattlesnakes. They're extremely venomous. They're aggressive. So one of the ways you can tell it's a water moccasin is as you approach the snake, it doesn't back down, right? It's like, hey, I got this venom, I'm taking you down. If it's like a banded water snake, which is commonly confused for water moccasin, they're scared, they scurry off. Mature water moccasins are relatively short, but fat and dark, whether it may be black or really dark brown. And they got that fat head, those jaws with the pit viper with the venom in them. So they're pretty obvious to see. If they don't have the fat head and they have some banding, it's probably a banded water snake, and it's nothing to be concerned with. But I'll tell you, if you get bit by a water moccasin, you're going straight to the hospital immediately. And if you're ever in an area, especially more wild, again, and you're in the bushes or something fishing, you want to make sure you're poking around with the stick and just be cognizant of water moccasins. Also, the way they swim is a dead giveaway. If they sink, they're poisonous. So be careful. I went camping on an island in Indian River Lagoon, which is only an hour east of Orlando, maybe closer if you live in East Orlando. Great Florida wildlife, great Orlando wildlife out there in the Indian River Lagoon. Brought one of my friends with me. They camped, him and his wife, under a huge canopy of trees that was loaded with birds. Would you believe that in the middle of the night, all the birds decided to take a crap at the same time? He woke up in the middle of the night with his tent completely covered in bird poop. I'm telling you, like painted white. It was disgusting. Him and his wife had to wake up in the middle of the night, unbeknownst to us, take all the stuff out of their tent, take it to the shoreline of the river and rinse it off and try and dry it off and get back in there and go to sleep. It's crazy. I tell you that story because the Indian River Lagoon is connected to Orlando in the sense of the St. Johns River and the different types of animals on there. And the one that comes to mind for me now is the manatee. The manatee is one of the symbols of the state of Florida. You have the Florida panther, you have manatees, you have the alligators, right? Manatees are right there. You see the Save the Manatees license plates. Manatees are so cool. They're so slow moving. They're obviously not aggressive. They eat seagrass and grass on the floor or the bed of our rivers and lakes. And one of the coolest things about living in Orlando is we're about 45 minutes to an hour south of Blue Springs. We have so many freshwater springs in and around Orlando and Central Florida. Blue Springs is connected to the St. John River system, and the manatees in this area, the Indian River Lagoon and elsewhere, they can slowly migrate up towards the spring during the wintertime. Why? Because it gets cold, at least cold enough for the manatees to be like, I don't like this cold water. I'm going to migrate up to a blue spring, to Blue Springs, where the water coming out of the Florida aquifer is a specific temperature year round. It's always something like 78 degrees or something like that. Certainly not too cold for the manatees to survive. If the manatees stay in some of these other shallower waterways and we have a sustained period of cold, the water temperature can drop and it can be dangerous for the manatees. And you, as an Orlando citizen or as an Orlando tourist, can drive up to Blue Springs during the wintertime and look over an embankment at this crystal clear water with thousands of fish, garfish, beautiful like bass, and then all around them, literally hundreds of manatees just sitting there. You can see the babies. It's the cutest thing. And if you go over to the West Coast to Crystal River, you can even swim with the manatees. They have this, it's the same phenomena where they go up into the spring associated with the Crystal River, associated with the Crystal River. Now back to the Indian River Lagoon. The Indian River Lagoon is extremely important to Central Florida. It's where you can go fishing for redfish, spotted trout. It's extremely famous. But unfortunately, over the last decade or two, it's kind of failed the ecosystem. And where the environmentalists are struggling to get it to come back to life. And that's where the manatee comes in. We lost thousands of manatees last year, due in large part to the fact that the grass in the Indian River Lagoon has died because of all the algae in there and that the light doesn't get through to the floor, to the bottom of the bed of the river. Well, the manatees have nothing to eat now. The manatees are extremely important for eating that grass, and then that grass can regenerate and it stays fresh and it's pulling more toxins and more oxygen out of the water and just keeping a nice clean ecosystem, the circle of life. So they're planting, the environmentalists are planting seagrass to try and save the manatees and get them to rebound, and I'm sure they will. Hopefully, we're going to get that river system and lagoon correct. And that's why also you need to respect the speed zones. If you find yourself boating in and around Central Florida, and especially over in the Indian River Lagoon, there's going to be signs and channels that say slow, no wake, manatee zone. That's because the manatees are so slow in lumbering. They aren't fast enough and don't have the instincts. And they never had predators that were fast like boats to get out of the way. So if you accidentally run over a manatee, you're going to hit it with the propeller of your boat that could damage it or kill it. It happens all the time. Let's take care of our beautiful Florida manatees. Quick tip: if you have a dock or something and you live in an area with manatees, like in the Indian River, you can throw a hose in, and the sound of the hose water, and the manatees just know they come up, and they'll come up to the hose and they'll drink out of it and they'll roll around in it, and even you can touch the manatees. I doubt that's legal, but you didn't hear it here, but your kids will love it. Trust me. Another great animal associated with the Indian River Lagoon that you certainly can find here in Orlando, and it's one of the birds that pooped all over my friend's tent, is the roseate spoonbill. Oh, do you even know what that is? Is that a flamingo? They're commonly confused as flamingos because, as the name implies, they're pink. They're absolutely beautiful, but they're smaller than flamingos. And you can see them here all over the golf courses in the area or anywhere there's big openings with big waterways, lakes and stuff. You're occasionally going to see roseate spoonbills. They're a lot harder to find than they used to be due to habitat loss, obviously, but they're absolutely beautiful. They have a large, long bill, unlike a flamingo, skinny, and at the end is a round shape. It looks like a spoon, and they wade through the water and they eat like little crustaceans and stuff, and that's what makes them turn pink. Again, they're not flamingos, and that begs the question: what about flamingos? Did you know that flamingos actually are native to Florida? How can we never see them? Well, back in the early 1900s, like so many things with environmental awareness, that they didn't exist. So hunters hunted flamingos crazy, especially because they wanted their pink, beautiful feathers, and they got hunted to near extinction. So there are little pockets of flamingos in Florida. Normally, it's private breeding colonies that people have done to save the flamingo, like down in Hialeah, where the racetrack is, where I grew up going to occasionally. Great parents, let me tell you. So you'll see flamingos, hopefully, in our lifetime start to make the rebound. But the roseate spoonbill is the coolest of all the wading birds. There's other wading birds, birds that walk around in the water hunting for fish, like great blue herons, great egrets, snowy egrets, on all the heron families, limpkins, these little brown birds that make huge, loud, annoying noises, kind of like a sandhill crane. We're so lucky to have all these beautiful animals in Orlando. Can you picture yourself enjoying the views of these animals, enjoying the views of a roseate spoonbill? Or can you picture you and your children watching the manatees go through that beautiful crystal clear water in Blue Springs? Orlando is such an amazing city, and that's why I love living here and I love working here. If you want to learn more about Orlando lifestyle, like things to do in Orlando, like restaurants to go to, businesses to check out, and different events, I have a post on my social media every Friday about things that I'm interested in doing every single weekend. So jump on my podcast, subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Make sure you get notified when I drop podcasts, because you never know when it's going to be a lifestyle oriented or Orlando specific oriented episode, or it's going to be an interview, or it's going to be a tip about real estate. And they're always pertinent tips, whether you're a seller or a buyer. With that being said, I work with both sellers and buyers. Don't hesitate to reach out to me for any questions. I want to make sure you get a good, qualified real estate agent myself. Okay. I'll take care of you, save you from having a bad real estate experience. I'm a listing specialist. I have an entire podcast episode devoted to selling your house, not just at the best price, but also fast, because nobody wants to go through a long selling process. It's called the auction effect. All right. And a portion of all of my commissions go to charity, either a charity of your choosing. And if you don't have a charity you're passionate about, you can donate to the charity I'm affiliated with, the New Image Youth Center, that just had their 20th anniversary gala last night. I was there. It was amazing. Note, I'm also a property developer. I build single family homes. And that segues me into the next topic. One of my clients came to me one day and said, Phil, I bought a house with you a few years ago, but now I'm interested in buying a piece of land for the future. Me and my wife want to build our own house. We want to build a family compound. We're going to stay in our house for now, but we want to buy a piece of land and wait a few years to save some more money to go through the build process. I said, hey, man, this is what I do. You know, I'm a property developer. I can help you achieve that. So you should, listening out there, also take advantage of that if that's a dream that you have. But one thing we ran into, and one thing you're going to run into, is, especially if you're buying large acreage out away from the city center, is the environmental issues, endangered species, okay, and wetlands. Wetlands usually come first. So you're going to have to hire an environmental engineer to go out and assess the parcel that you want to buy. And this is what my client had to do for wetlands. Where are the wetlands? Can I impact them? Meaning, can they be removed? And if so, for how much? And let me tell you, that's very expensive and a topic for a podcast of a different day. This is something I do all the time, especially out in Wedgefield. Keep your eye on Wedgefield. It's up and coming if it's not already here. But let's focus in on the endangered species. Typically, that environmental engineer is going to identify any endangered species of concern that are on your project. The number one most common one to run into, and it's what I teased at the very beginning of the podcast, is not a turtle, but a tortoise, the gopher tortoise. Of course, tortoises have feet and don't go in the water, where turtles have web feet and swim. So the gopher tortoise is a keystone species that's native to Florida. It's extremely important. You would look at it and be like, what's this little turtle? Why does that matter? This tortoise doesn't matter. Well, they burrow and they dig these huge burrows and they move a lot. So they'll move from burrow to burrow and they just keep digging. It's their instinct to dig burrows. What does that do? It creates habitat for all these other animals that need these burrows to survive. And over millions of years, these other animals have come to depend on these burrows. We're talking snakes, we're talking foxes, we're talking burrowing owls, raccoons, all kinds of skunks, all kinds of other common animals. If we eradicated the gopher tortoise, these animals would run out of habitat, and you would see a whole ecosystem collapse. So there is a reason we need to take care of these gopher tortoises. What if you find gopher tortoises on your property? Is your construction project over? Are you screwed? What do you do? In most cases, you're able to relocate the gopher tortoise to a environmental preserve or something like that. Of course, you have to pay a fee, right? You got to pull a permit. It can be as little as $500, and depending on the situation, it can be as many as a few $1,000s. Generally, it's not that expensive, and it's something that you're going to discover during the due diligence process. If you buy or going to buy a piece of land, you're going to put it under contract. You're going to have a due diligence process, which is basically a home inspection period, if you're familiar with the home buying process. In both of these cases, due diligence and home inspection, that's a get out of jail free card. During that period of time, you can cancel the contract for any reason, or frankly, no reason. You don't have to give a reason, you just cancel. In this case, it could be, hey, there's 20 gopher tortoise burrows on this single acre, which probably won't happen, but for instance, and I'm not going to pay to have them all relocated. I'm going to back out. So either way, you can get it done. Another one that can be a more sticky issue is a bald eagle nest. Usually this is a little bit more obvious because you can see it. Bald eagles typically nest in the highest tree. Normally it's like a solitary pine. So it should be fairly obvious that, hey, there's some sort of big bird of prey nest up there. Is it an osprey? Is it a bald eagle? Same thing. You're going to have to find it out with an environmental engineer, and you can pull a permit to have it moved in most cases. You can't move it if they're actively nesting with chicks or eggs. And you have to pull not just the state permit, like with the gopher tortoise, but you also have to pull a federal permit. The bald eagle is our national animal, after all. More cost, more time. Be aware of bald eagle nests. There's going to be other environmental species like the scrub jay and certain types of woodpecker and so forth. Don't need to worry about them so much in Central Florida. Maybe on the coast you do. Gopher tortoises and bald eagles are your number one concern. So pivoting a little bit to other animals here that we might run into closer to downtown Orlando, let's say, or closer to areas of Orlando or Sanford, up north of Seminole County, that you might see more. Bears. I was riding my bike to the gym. I live in Soto, south of downtown Orlando. I'm talking, I'm only 2.5 miles south of downtown. And it was about 5:30 in the morning. I was riding my bike to the gym like I do every morning, or maybe it was 6 o'clock, doesn't matter. And I saw this, looked like a large dog run across the street. But its butt was tucked down real low. It had no tail, and it just was weird. So it runs across the street, and I'm thinking to myself, that was a dog. And I stopped and I thought, and I go, my brain was like, no, it's not a dog. And I'm trying to overrule my brain, say, no, it is a dog. And my brain's like, no, it's not. Well, I'm like, what the heck is that? And it popped into my head. That must have been a small black bear, a small black bear. During certain seasons, the juvenile black bears leave their moms and they have to go and find their own territory. And that's oftentimes when you see the bears leaving the nature preserves, you see them leaving Seminole County and the state forest and the national forest and going out into the city where, frankly, they're not welcomed. Let's talk about bears. So where are they typically? They're certainly up in Seminole County, up north of downtown by a good half hour. There's a lot more nature preserves up there. Seminole County is known for its nature, its springs, its rivers, its beauty, Wakaiva Springs, Apopka, that kind of stuff. If you live up there, you have to have bear-proof trash cans. All right. They literally have special locks on them that only humans can manipulate. And sometimes humans can't even manipulate them, by the way. They're tough. And that stops the bears from getting out of the trash. Because at the end of the day, most of the time, bears that you see aren't necessarily, when they leave their mothers, they're just hungry, especially up there in Seminole County. They can smell the trash. If they can come and they can get into a trash can, they're going to, and they'll eat anything. Bears are extremely resourceful. So they're going to dig through your trash. They're going to eat your cardboard that smells like eggs. They're going to eat your banana peels. They're going to eat everything. Keep your trash cans locked. Keep them inside your garage. If the bears come to these trash cans again and again and they can't get the food, they're no longer, even though they smell it, they're no longer going to identify that as a food source, and they'll stop coming in to your neighborhoods. So that's the number one thing we need to do to keep the bear issue at bay. But what do you do if you see bears? If I'm not mistaken, Florida's governor recently passed a law where you can shoot bears if you're on your property. I'm pretty sure that's true. Sounds kind of dangerous in the neighborhood to me, but hey, it is what it is. If you're not going to shoot the bear and you see a bear and you're on a walk with your dog or something, you don't want to hide your fear, right? Keep upright and just back away slowly until you're pretty much out of the bear's eyesight or the bear moves on and you turn around and go about your way. Do not run. Do not make sudden movements. You may prompt the bear to charge, especially if you look at him in the eye. Now, if you're on your property, and this is per the Fish and Wildlife Commission website, by the way, if you want to find out more, go on fwc.com or .gov, FWC, Fish and Wildlife Commission, for more information. Other nuisance animals, and these ones are definitely in and around downtown Orlando. In my neighborhood, we've seen one, and in College Park, there's signs about this all over the place. Coyotes. Coyotes are a native species. They're all over the United States. They haven't been in the Southeast for a long time due to habitat loss and stuff, but they're coming back in. So there's a place for coyotes in our ecosystem, but they're a nuisance. Why? They're like a cross between a dog and a wolf. So they're bigger than a dog, smaller than a wolf. They're pack hunters. They're good at what they do. Also very resourceful. They'll also eat just about anything. So how do we get coyotes out of our neighborhoods? All right. Secure your trash. But the number one thing, because they're not like bears, they're not going to go knock over a trash can. But if you leave a trash bag out, like a raccoon, they're going to come get it. You don't want to leave your pet food out. And this is a big one. A lot of people have outdoor cats. They put out the pet food and just leave it there indefinitely. You're inviting raccoons, possums, and coyotes. The coyotes are going to smell that. The coyotes are going to come, and they're going to eat your cat food. They might eat your cat. Bring your cats inside, or something like that. If you have chickens, the coyotes are going to be drawn to chickens. That's natural prey for them. So if you have chicken coops and chicken enclosures, make sure you take the necessary precautions to make them coyote proof. If you do encounter a coyote, let's say you're walking your dog and you see one, they're not like bears. They're more scared of you. They're smaller. Be aggressive. Make loud noises. It's called hazing them. Scream, wave your arms, shake a can full of rocks, something like that. Throw a stick, throw a rock, spray a hose at them. The more negative experiences the coyotes have in your neighborhood, the less likely they're going to come back because they're going to be scared. For them, those loud noises, that means death. They are scared to death and they get the heck out of there. Be a nuisance to them. Haze those coyotes, get them out of your neighborhood, and pick up your fruit. Also, you have fruit trees. We all have fruit trees in Orlando. Another one of the main beautiful things, great things about living in Orlando. We got our avocados, our mangoes, our citrus, right? Our papaya. If they fall, pick them up off the ground. The coyotes are going to come eat them, and the black bears will come eat them too. These animals are very resourceful. If you want to enjoy some of the animals I mentioned today, and you don't want to go out into nature per se, or you don't want to interact with them necessarily in your front yard, we do have a couple key options that you can go to. Drive up to the Sanford Zoo. It's really nice. It's small, so it's easy to walk around with young kids. They have a splash pad, and they have a lot of Florida wildlife, but they also have African wildlife like rhinos and cheetahs. It's really cool. The Orlando Science Center just redid their first floor. It's broken down into 3 different habitats: rainforest, waterways like oceans and streams, and I think forest or something. I can't recall what else, but a great place to take the kids in an air-conditioned environment and see some of Florida's wildlife, especially the ones with turtles and gators. They have that there. And of course, the classic, Gatorland. If you have friends coming in from out of town, and you want to have the experience that I had when I went to Shark Valley in Miami and was riding my bicycles around the alligators, you go to Gatorland. The gators are everywhere. They're monstrous. You get to walk down a catwalk that's fenced off over a large waterway, and there's literally hundreds of gators everywhere. It's a really cool. Plus, there's other reptiles on the little train. It's really neat. And there's probably other animal encounters out there I'm missing. Go check them out. The bottom line is Orlando is amazing. This is one of the many reasons Orlando is the best city in the US for me. It's not just our economy. It's not just that we're the most visited city in the entire country every single year, or that we have the biggest airport in the state of Florida. The wildlife, we get to live in a major metropolitan area and be an hour from the beach and be surrounded by lakes and waterways and have all this natural flora and fauna around it. How blessed are we to call Orlando home? And if you don't call Orlando home, I'll help you out. All right. I am a real estate agent. I specialize in relocations. I specialize in new construction, so we can make it easier for you, get you in a new construction home. There's some out in East Orlando right now with water, a deeded lake access, or you can build a custom home right on the lake with your own dock and experience some of this wildlife for yourself. Remember, a portion of all my commissions, whether you're selling or buying, a portion of every single one of my transactions is going to the New Image Youth Center or a charity of your choosing. Jump on my podcast, go explore my catalog of episodes. I'm up to near 40 episodes now. While you're there, like and subscribe, leave me a 5-star review. You'll get notifications every Monday. Copy the link, send it to a friend via text or on social media, please. It'll help me out a lot. And always know that your best life in Orlando is within reach. Keep embracing every moment. Cheers.